It was a warm Friday night, and the buzz of people talking filled the air at La Fontaine, a fancy restaurant in Raleigh, North Carolina. The sound of glasses clinking, servers walking around, and soft jazz music from the corner piano created the perfect mood. Deborah, a 25-year-old waitress with a calm attitude and a twinkle in her eyes, moved quickly between tables, balancing plates and flashing a smile. To most customers, she was just another waitress in a uniform, but inside, she had big dreams that reached far beyond the luxurious restaurant. Deborah wasn't just serving food. She was waiting for the moment when her dreams could come true. Music was her passion, not serving food. Ever since she was a little girl, the piano had been her escape. It was the one place she could express herself, whether it was happy, sad, or anything in between. But dreams don't pay the bills. Working long shifts at La Fontaine was a way to earn money, and it kept her moving closer to her goal, attending the music academy she dreamed of. Most people didn't know about her talent, but the other staff at the restaurant sometimes caught her sneaking in moments at the old piano in the back room during her breaks. That night, as the restaurant started to calm down, the door opened, and in walked the last person Deborah wanted to deal with. It was Leonard Grayson. He was a well-known millionaire, and as soon as he stepped inside, everyone knew it. Leonard had a way of walking into a room and acting like he owned it. He was surrounded by a few rich friends and carried an air of superiority that made even the most experienced waiters stand up straighter. The other staff exchanged looks. Leonard was notorious for making life difficult for those who worked around him. But Deborah didn't let it bother her. To her, Leonard was just another customer at her table, no different than the others. Or so she thought. Leonard Grayson leaned back in his chair, scanning the menu like it held the secret to the universe. He never rushed when it came to food, and tonight was no exception. His friends at the table were engaged in a loud conversation, but Leonard wasn't paying attention to any of it. His mind was elsewhere. He could have any dish he wanted, but all he cared about was the chance to ruin someone's evening. Deborah approached the table, her notepad ready. She had dealt with picky customers before, but Leonard's cold stare made her nervous. She had heard the rumors about him, how he'd made waiters cry and sent back entire meals for no reason at all. But Deborah wasn't going to let him get under her skin. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you tonight?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. Leonard barely looked up, still fiddling with his silverware. "You can start by bringing me your finest bottle of wine," he said in a voice that left no room for argument. Deborah nodded, taking his order. As she turned to walk away, Leonard's voice stopped her. "And make sure it's quick. I don't have all night," he added with a smirk. Deborah felt her heart race. This wasn't the first time a rich customer had been rude, but there was something different about Leonard. Something about the way he treated people, like they were beneath him. But she had a job to do. She took a deep breath, reminded herself of her bigger dreams, and kept walking. It wasn't long before she returned with the wine, and Leonard's attitude had only grown worse. He made rude comments about the food, the service, and even the decor. Deborah kept her head high, refusing to let him see how his words affected her. She had learned that letting people like Leonard win only made them more ruthless. Tyler Brooks had just finished his last class of the day when his phone buzzed. It was a text from his friend James. "You won't believe what I found. Meet me in the garage." Tyler frowned. James was always up to something, but this sounded different. It was rare for him to send a message like that. He quickly grabbed his bag and headed to his friend's house, his curiosity growing with every step. When he reached the garage, he found James standing next to an old wooden chest that looked like it had been forgotten for years. "What's up?" Tyler asked, confused. James pointed at the chest. "I was cleaning up, and I found this hidden in the back. It looks ancient." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Hidden? You mean, like buried?" James nodded, excitement lighting up his face. "Exactly. It was behind a pile of boxes. I thought it was just junk, but this thing is different. It feels like it has a secret." Tyler's interest peaked. "All right, let's see what's inside." Together, they pried open the chest. Inside, Tyler couldn't believe his eyes. There were old, dusty documents, photos, and a strange, glowing artifact. Tyler reached for one of the papers and immediately felt a jolt of energy. James, this isn't just some random stuff. This is serious, Siler said, his voice shaky. James was speechless, staring at the items like they held the key to something much bigger than they realized. Lena Davis had no idea what was about to happen when she stumbled across the old family album hidden in her grandmother's attic. She had been up there to search for something completely different when she saw it. The album, tucked away in the far corner, was covered in dust and looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Curiosity took over. She opened the album, flipping through the pages of old photos. Most of them were pictures of her grandparents when they were young, and a few were of her parents. But one photo caught her attention. It was a picture of her grandmother standing with a man Lena had never seen before. His face was blurry, but something about the photo felt off. Lena turned the page, but the next photo only deepened her confusion. It was another picture of the same man, this time with her grandmother and her mother, Lena's mom, as a little girl. The man's face was clearer now, but Lena still didn't recognize him. "Who is this guy?" she wondered aloud. She raced downstairs to ask her grandmother about the mysterious man. Her grandmother froze when she saw the photos. "I was hoping you'd never find those," she said quietly. Lena was confused. "What do you mean? Who is he?" Her grandmother sighed deeply, sitting down slowly. "That man was your real grandfather, not the one you knew. I kept it a secret for years to protect the family." Lena felt a rush of emotions: shock, disbelief, and a deep curiosity. What had her grandmother been hiding all these years? The truth was finally coming out, but it raised even more questions. It was the day of the big charity event, and Maria Jenkins was feeling nervous. As a young lawyer, this was her first big case, and she was about to represent a client in front of a judge who was known for being tough. But what happened next was something no one expected. Soon as the trial began, Judge Richards began making jokes, mocking Maria's arguments, and showing no respect. His words were sharp, and the courtroom filled with laughter at her expense. Maria, though, wasn't going to back down. She'd been preparing for this moment for years. As the case moved on, Maria stayed calm. But the more Judge Richards made fun of her, the more determined she became. Then, just when everyone thought Maria had lost, she did something no one saw coming. She reached into her bag and pulled out her badge. "I'm not just a lawyer, Your Honor," Maria said firmly. "I'm also an FBI agent." The courtroom went silent. Judge Richards stared at her in disbelief. He had no idea that Maria was one of the top agents in the FBI, and this was just her side job. Maria's confidence took everyone by surprise, including Judge Richards. The courtroom, that had once laughed at her, now waited in stunned silence as she laid out her case. In the end, she won the case, and her reputation as a lawyer was forever changed. It was supposed to be a routine traffic stop for Officer Jameson, but when he pulled over a car on a dark, quiet road, he had no idea what was about to happen. Inside the car was a man with a secret that would change everything. Officer Jameson approached the car cautiously, but when he saw the driver's face, something didn't add up. The man looked completely normal, just a regular guy in his mid-30s. But as Officer Jameson started asking questions, he noticed something strange in the man's eyes. There was a calm, almost too calm, look in them. It made the officer uneasy. "Where are you headed tonight?" Officer Jameson asked, trying to stay professional. But the man's response didn't make sense. He claimed to be on his way to a remote cabin in the woods, but something about the story just didn't fit. The officer was about to write a ticket when suddenly the man pulled out a badge. "I'm not just any driver, officer," he said coolly. "I'm an undercover federal agent." The words hit Officer Jameson like a punch to the gut. He had no idea he was talking to one of the most well-known undercover agents in the country. The man was on a secret mission, and Officer Jameson had nearly stopped him for no reason at all. After the initial shock wore off, the officer backed off, apologizing for the misunderstanding. But the agent simply nodded, keeping his calm demeanor. What happened next was even more shocking. The agent handed Jameson his own badge and said, "You're lucky I'm not on duty, or we'd be having a much bigger conversation." It started off like any other day at school. Students walked through the hallways, chatting and laughing, unaware of the trouble lurking just around the corner. But when the principal, Mrs. Lawson, made an announcement over the PA system, everything changed. "We have a serious situation on campus," she said, her voice shaking. "Please stay in your classrooms and lock the doors. This is not a drill." The news spread like wildfire, and fear quickly gripped the students. No one knew what was happening, but everyone could feel something was terribly wrong. Among the chaos, a quiet student named Jason kept his cool. While everyone else was in a panic, Jason calmly walked over to his teacher and whispered, "I know what we need to do." Jason wasn't just any student. He was actually a trained volunteer firefighter, something no one at school knew about. When he heard the announcement, he instantly went into action. He took charge, telling the teacher to barricade the door and keep the class calm. Moments later, Jason was out in the hallway, checking on students and making sure everyone was safe. But the real shock came when the school security cameras showed Jason helping officers evacuate people from dangerous areas without even hesitating. When everything was over, Mrs. Lawson stood in front of the entire school, praising Jason for his bravery. No one had expected this quiet student to be the hero of the day. The school would never forget how Jason kept his head cool when it mattered most. He wasn't just another student, he was the unexpected hero who saved the day. It was an ordinary Saturday when Tommy Collins decided to spend the day cleaning out his grandfather's old garage. He wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary, just a dusty old space filled with tools and forgotten memories. But when he pulled open an old wooden chest in the corner, his eyes went wide with surprise. Inside the chest was a stack of papers, all tied together with a worn-out string. As he untied them, Tommy realized the papers weren't just ordinary junk. They were old, faded letters that seemed like they'd been written decades ago. And the names on those letters were ones he recognized. Tommy's heart raced as he skimmed through the papers. They told the story of a hidden treasure, something that had been lost for years, something that could change everything for his family. These letters weren't just about gold or money. They spoke about a deep secret, something that had been buried in the past and kept hidden from everyone. Tommy couldn't believe what he was reading. He felt like he had stumbled into a mystery that was bigger than anything he could have imagined. The discovery turned Tommy's world upside down. What he thought was just an old garage was now a treasure trove of secrets, waiting to be uncovered. His family had no idea what he had found, but Tommy knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. This small discovery would lead him on a journey that no one saw coming, and it all started with those old letters that revealed a secret so big it could change everything. It was 3 a.m. when Sarah Williams was jolted awake by a strange noise outside her window. She had no idea what it was, but it sounded like footsteps creeping across the dark yard. Nervously, she got up and tiptoed toward the window, trying not to make a sound. What she saw next made her heart race. A shadowy figure stood under the streetlight, looking around like they were waiting for something or someone. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she realized the figure was moving toward her house. Her mind raced. What could it be? Was it someone trying to break in? Or was something else going on? Just then, the figure turned, and Sarah's eyes locked onto them. Her heart skipped a beat. It was someone she knew, a person who shouldn't have been there at all. But before Sarah could react, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving her stunned and confused. What had just happened? Who was that person, and what were they doing in her yard at this time of night? Sarah tried to shake off the feeling, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. The strange events that had unfolded in the dark hours of the night were far from over. There was something going on, and she was about to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the biggest mystery of her life. It was just another normal day at school when suddenly a loud alarm rang through the hallways. The principal's voice came over the loudspeaker. "Everyone, please stay calm. We're going into lockdown." Panic spread across the classrooms. Students whispered, asking what was happening. Was it a drill? Or something worse? Tyler Brown sat frozen in his seat, his heart racing. He could hear the faint sounds of footsteps outside, but they didn't sound like normal hallway noise. Something didn't feel right. The teacher locked the door and pulled the shades down, but Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that something dangerous was out there. Was there a real threat? Or was it just a mistake? Suddenly, the door handle rattled. Tyler's breath caught in his throat. Was someone trying to get in? Or had someone made it inside? Everyone held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Minutes felt like hours as the tension in the room grew. Tyler, along with the rest of the class, could only wonder what was going on outside those locked doors. Was someone in danger? Who could be behind this frightening situation? But then, just as quickly as it started, the lockdown was over. The principal's voice came on again, saying, "All clear. You can return to your normal activities." But the relief didn't last long. The mystery of what really happened that day lingered in Tyler's mind. What had truly happened during that lockdown? And why had it been so strange?